Hello! We did it! We crossed the Rubicon. We made it through the gauntlet. We came out the other side of the anal-like tunnel. We did it. Do you feel a rebirth? Do you feel like a new person?
No, I don't. Unless I'm just, I'm more bitter than I was. But that's not, interestingly enough, the Rubicon is a real thing. Crossing the Rubicon.
It's a river in, Rome, Italy?
Not a river in Rome, no. But Caesar, isn't that, were we talking about this? I feel like I was talking about this recently with someone. Was that you?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Is that your phone?
That was my phone, but it's not anymore.
Yes, it's a river that Caesar crossed in order to conquer his homeland.
Some shit.
Conquer Rome. To take over his homeland.
This week's history lesson brought to you by some people who did not read up on the shit.
This week's history lesson brought to you by Sometimes We Know Something. Every once in a while, we get some facts here and there.
We know the vague story.
Hey, you're the daughter of the historian, so...
That doesn't mean I am one. Sins of the father. By the way, Nope, lost it.
Wow, we're just throwing facts out left and right. We're really showing them something this week. This is the
show.
First of all, welcome to Comments Censored. This is the show where we talk censored stories and people, sensible solutions, and common ground movements to fight and build.
Jesus. Go a little faster.
I'm energized. We did it. We got through the election.
And sometimes other stuff.
That was too slow. So
I'm making up for your speed demonry.
So this election that's been upcoming for the past
election in quotes
13 to 14 years, and we're finally through it. For those of you who want maybe a more in-depth reaction, I mean, we're going to talk about some of the Trump-Biden mirage in a second, but if you want kind of more general thoughts on the election, we did a live stream last night. You can watch it online, and we went through a lot of our feelings about this election, which I think you already knew a lot of them. But yeah, it's sadly, as I think we've both said for a long time, these two goons, Biden and Trump, and the people around them, they agree on 90% of the structural issues of this country, and therefore most things will not change. So yeah, I'm sorry for those of you who think we're on the cusp of something large.
Well, if you've stumbled onto this podcast, I feel like most people listening to this podcast are at the very least wary of Biden and Harris. But if you stumbled upon this podcast and you're super excited and you're still like in the, it's kind of like the summer fling days where you're like, oh my God, this is so great. And you're walking on sunshine and you got butterflies in your belly and sunflowers up your ass. And
Then you've wandered too long through a field.
But basically, like, I don't hate to say it. I'm just saying it. What I hate is how excited people are at the concept of Biden being different, when in reality, all arrows point to sameness. And there's been there's been some great, one of the things that we talked about yesterday on the live stream,
which you can get at youtube.com/moment of clarity.
Dun, dun, dun. One of the things that we mentioned was Black Agenda Report did a great rundown of Kamala Harris and the sort of the use of black and brown people in the Democrats' sameness. Because when you look at the policy, it's very similar to Republicans.
You mean the use of the black and brown politicians?
Well, I mean, not always. They'll trot out some activists and say, hey, these people, we stand with these people. And
leaders or whatever.
So,
yeah, okay.
Well, but people, let's just say people, because it's not just politicians. And, it's sometimes it's like this shop owner, like, oh, look at this black shop owner. Oh, look at this indigenous veteran or whatever the fuck they do. The Democrats are really excel at using these folks for their facade. But in reality, the policy policy is the same. And Black Agenda Report has done a great job of sort of talking about this issue of using Black and brown folks for, to create a sort, props, to create the mirage of a difference between the Democrats and Republicans, when in reality there isn't one. And the reality of the next 4 years that we're looking at with Biden is going to be very similar to that of the past 4 years. And I don't know if you want to jump into.
Well, I just want to say, add one thing to what you're saying, which is, and I thought this spoke to it more than anything, which I don't know if anyone made a fuss over this or talked much about it, but there was a moment in the DNC convention when they showed a video of a Black woman who said she runs an elevator in one of Biden's buildings. I don't know if it's the building he works in or what, but she basically said, I'm paraphrasing, but she basically said, look, I'm a nobody, and Joe Biden was friendly to me, and he talked to me like I'm a person. And it's like, this is the best you can get. This is proof that Biden does anything for people of color, is this elevator operator who he happened to ask her how her day is. It just seems so
low bar.
Yeah, it just seems so pathetic to me. It seemed like this is all we could find. This is Biden's example of a Black friend. This and the Black president who brought him onto the ticket so that he could pretend he had, old white support. It's not like they're buddies. This is the best you can find. Is an elevator operator who was like, Joe Biden didn't spit in my face when he asked for the floor, me to push the button.
And I just wanted to share this quote from the Popular Resistance newsletter. If you folks are not familiar with Popular Resistance, please check them out over at popularresistance.org. But this is a quote from their latest newsletter that reads, quote, Trump ran on a platform of scaling back U.S. interventionism, as did Obama, as did even Bush. But Biden has done the opposite. He is beginning from a much more hawkish position than his predecessors right off the bat. So, and this is something that we've seen also with the issue of universal health care. Obama ran on, I want people to have universal health care, and then he came up with a fucking Affordable Care Act, which is neither affordable nor caring. It's a handout to fucking big pharma and insurance companies. But Biden has from the beginning said, like almost verbatim, look, I speak for the Democratic Party. I am the Democratic Party, and we do not want anything to do with Medicare for all or anything like it. So right off of the fucking bat, Biden has gone ahead and said...
He said he would veto it.
Nope, I want nothing to do with any of this. So shut the fuck up and sit down if you want to survive. And if you want to end the war machine in the military industrial complex, like he didn't even bother running on that shit. And this also feeds into the idea of like how cocky the Democrats are. And Biden also said this point blank when he was when he was doing this interview. I can't remember the host's name, but he basically said, if you're voting for Trump, then you ain't Black. Basically...
That was, what's his name? Charlemagne the God, I believe.
Basically, just coming out and saying point blank that the Democrats know that for the most part they have Black voters. They've got really BIPOC voters in general,
it's
Black,
like you
Indigenous,
have no
people
option,
of colors.
yeah.
Because the Democrats and the Republicans together have done such a good job of shutting out any competition from third, fourth, fifth, sixth parties and from progressives, that the Democrats feel comfortable knowing that if you give a shit about anything, then you are going to have to vote for the Democrats. And this is another thing that was brought up, I believe, in the Popular Resistance newsletter, is that when shit goes wrong in this country, which it does because our policy is balls, when shit goes wrong in this country, the Republicans appeal to their base and say, hey, look, the shit's going wrong, it's Black people's fault, or whatever. The Democrats do the exact opposite. They look at their base and they're like, no, sit, stop, no. And it's basically like
they don't appeal to them. They just say, what choice do you have?
That's what I'm saying. They say, sit down and shut up. Yeah. No. And so you have the growth of the extreme right in terms of how much their voices are upheld and listened to and amplified. And you have this shoving down and quieting and shutting up of progressive voices, because the Democrats are deathly afraid that the people that they claim to give a shit about when they wrap themselves in Black Lives Lives Matter and pride flags, they're deathly afraid that those people are actually going to come for them when they wake up enough to know that they don't fucking give a shit about you, which is why it's so fucking frustrating and infuriating that there were so many people in this neoliberal shithole, also known as Washington, D.C., that were hooping and hollering that Biden was fucking elected. And it's like, and I was just walking down the streets being like, yay, 94 crime bill. Yay, rape allegations. Yay, Kamala Harris, top cop.
Wall
this is
Street.
awesome. Yeah, war crimes. Woo!
Yeah, I think that's all true, and they really have put it to the point where it's like, if you stand for anything that's even mildly left wing or progressive, you have no choice. They tell you have no choice. I believe you have a choice, but they tell you have no choice. You got to vote for Biden. You got to vote for the Democrats. And then the fact that this was not a blue wave. There was not some massive shift in the House. In fact, they lost seats in the House. They likely won't have the Senate, and even if they get it, it'll be by one vote or something. This is no massive shift to the blue Democrats in this election. Even if you account for the millions of people who were purged from the voter rolls, it still probably wouldn't have been a blue wave. They might have gotten more seats in the House than they did, but. And then they have the nerve to blame it on progressives. They have the nerve to say it's because Ocasio-Cortez wants a Green New Deal, or because they wanted Medicare for all. Even though,
which, if you look at the results, everybody who ran against Medicare for all lost. Everyone who ran for Medicare for all won. I'm sorry, but the people fucking are trying to speak, but you're shutting them up and shutting them down, and then some people are excited that you've got your boot on their neck. But the reality of the situation is that people want universal health care. People don't want war. People don't want this fucking hegemonic bullshit empire. People don't want massive drilling and coal mining and all of this shit. People want a livable future. That's the reality of the situation. But the problem is that when you look at the two parties, there is no difference on these issues that I've just mentioned. And people get this illusion because, oh, look, it's a different shade of person that's running on the blue ticket. I must appreciate, or I must vote for them because they must have the interests of the oppressed and the marginalized, but they fucking don't. And you will always find people in marginalized groups of people to lick the boot of the oppressor and tell you it tastes like freedom. You will always find those people. There are women who are against Me Too. There are black folks that are against Black Lives Matter. You're always going to find these people, but that doesn't mean that it's fucking right.
Well, and the people who want to keep believing in, let's say, Obama or Biden or Harris, they just have this endless array of excuses for the fact that they never stand up for the people or for progressive values. I was arguing with a friend, and she was saying that Biden has changed since his 90s crime bill, since the Obama administration. So I guess over the last 2 years he's changed. But she said, you got to give him time to change. He's changed. And it's like, well, you can't just say things without any evidence just because you're trying to defend it. And then, I brought up Obama, and she said, well, I was disappointed in Obama too, but, he couldn't get it through without Congress. And it's like, Trump proved how much power the presidency has even without Congress. He did have it for a couple of years, but even without Congress, how much power the presidency has. And then with Harris, she said the reason she did that in California, fucking prosecute people for an endless list of drug crimes and lock people up because their children are truant, not showing up to school. I mean, it's just disgusting to put someone behind bars for that, which putting someone behind bars is not like, oh, they were in jail for a week. It's like, it can destroy your life.
Once you're in the system, it's very hard to remove yourself.
So many ramifications to it. So I was listing all these things, and she said, well, as a black woman AG, she had so much pressure on her And it's like, oh yeah, well now she won't have pressure on her as
Well, and
the
also
as the
that's
VP.
a bullshit excuse because if you didn't want to do those things, if you didn't want to put people in cages, then you would have soon realized, oh well, shit, either I need to make a bigger stand and possibly have ramifications against my career to stand up for what's right, or I need to do something else, like I don't know, maybe do some community organizing. But nobody fucking forced her to do these things. Yes, the system is rotten, but people play with the system at their own free will. No one forced Kamala to be an AG. Nobody forced her to be the top cop. She chose that path. So this idea that, oh, well, she had to do... No, she fucking didn't. And there are plenty of AGs who don't do what she did.
Right.
So this idea that for some reason she is the unique person that had to do these horrible things, it's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. And it also, speaks to that issue that we saw with Obama, that I believe Black Agenda Report brought up as well, is that folks felt that they couldn't talk shit about Obama because he was the black president, right? When in reality, Obama made life worse for black folks in the U.S. than even Bush did. But everyone was like, I can't say anything, or folks just
Right.
turned around and stopped paying attention because they thought, oh, Obama's got it. He's eloquent. He's so charming. He's got it on lock. No big deal.
Well, so you're kind of getting into it. So let's jump ahead to we were going to talk about Biden's foreign policy that he's been running on. And by the way, he's already been floating that he's going to put at least a few Republicans in his cabinet. And I mean, if you look at the people that are floated as being part of his cabinet, these are not. No one is progressive. I mean, it's and the most you can get is a neoliberal like Pete Buttigieg or something like that. That's what they consider left wing amongst this group. But anyway, let's jump to that.
What is that we're jumping to?
We're skipping the first story and we're going to the second that says Eleanor.
I already kind of touched on this.
Well, we didn't get into foreign policy stuff, I don't think.
So, well, I did say that, Biden started from a much more hawkish position than his predecessors. So, I'm not sure what...
Well, you have a great quote here. Trump ran on a platform of scaling back U.S. interventionism, as did Obama.
I already read that quote.
You read that?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that. But
here you go, folks. Well, we're going to do it on repeat because Lee wasn't paying attention.
Sorry, I'm trying to read ahead on our notes. But anyway, and you were talking about you were just talking about how people didn't want to criticize the first black president, but it's like meanwhile Obama was militarizing Africa for the first time, dropping more bombs than ever before. His final year in office, he dropped over his Pentagon. So it's not him, but it's his Pentagon dropped over 30,000 munitions, and Trump did increase that. I don't want to act like Trump was some kind of peacenik. It went up to 40,000 under Trump a year. This is a year. This is every 12 minutes. On average.
A bomb every 12 minutes.
A bomb every 12 minutes. 40,000 every 12 minutes.
But yeah, no, of course, that is an incredibly important thing to note. And especially with AFRICOM, of course, Africa is predominantly non-white. And this is they call it like the new scramble for Africa. It's this reboot of the colonization that we saw that Europe did, particularly with the likes of Belgium that was absolutely fucking horrific, in places like the Congo. And we're seeing a reboot of that because of the minerals that are in Africa. Once again, the natural resources of Africa are really mouthwatering for countries like the United States, Russia, China, the superpowers. And there's a new scramble for Africa. And I guess you could probably say that like China and the U.S. are going head to head, but there are so many military. But if you look at a map, I had one up on one of the pieces that I did for Deception 2020, but there's a map of Africa with military bases, and it looks like a fucking
smallpox.
It looks like
exactly. Like it has smallpox.
It looks like Africa has smallpox, which is also a very
apt
colonial callback there. But yeah, I mean, and this, as you noted, Lee, happened largely under Obama. So this idea that just because someone looks like they come from a marginalized or more marginalized marginalized group of people doesn't mean shit. And the longer that we allow this to silence us from any sort of condemnation or critique or really contempt for those oppressing, regardless of what they look like, the longer that we're going to be securely under their boot and just sort of waving flags around like, woo, we got the rapist, sexist, racist piece of shit Warhawk of our choice. Yay.
Which is, for those of you who want to see, I did a video today, again, also at youtube.com/moment of clarity, just talking about how I was like, exactly what you just said. I hope the racist corporate war criminal sexual predator of your choice won. And then I go through each of those, I'm like, some of you may think that sounds harsh. And I go through each of those adjectives and say, does anyone really argue with me? Like when you think about the facts, when you look at the fucking facts, is there any part of that sentence that is incorrect? And so anyway, I go through it, but so that's online. But so this is same kind of train of thought, but slightly different. Is or moving on, is that in order for the Democrats to even just eke out this, fucking razor thin margin win, which would not have been as razor thin if millions hadn't been purged. But, the Democrats don't care that much about black people, so the fact that they're purged didn't upset them that much. But in order to do that, they had to have a pandemic in which 200,000 people have died, have an economic collapse, which, we're on the verge of it, even if we're not there yet, but it is a massive recession to begin with and will likely be a depression. Have a fucking maniac in the White House who, does just insane shit every day and says things like every day he tweets or says something that would have destroyed the candidacy of any previous presidential candidate. But all of that had to line up in order for the Democrats to eke out a win, because they really stand for nothing, and the people are starting to figure that out. There's nothing that Biden, there's no specific thing that Biden brought forward that he's going to change. And so when he'd give a speech, like he did have a climate speech, but his climate speech had really no specific policies other than he said he's going to put 5,000 electric car chargers across the country or something like that's going to solve it. And it's a bunch of rhetoric about like the world is burning. He said the president, meaning Trump, is a climate arsonist or something. And it's like, well, you haven't given anything different you do. And in fact,
and he said he's against the Green New Deal, and which
yeah.
Even the Green New Deal the Democrats put forward is even a watered down version of the Green New Deal that was first brought over by the Green Party from Europe, from European Green parties, that is really built on a sort of eco-socialist platform that is thoroughly anti-capitalist, because as we've covered on this podcast and I think in our respective work, you can't have a livable future and capitalism at the same time. So the Green New Deal,
you can have one or the other.
Right. So the Green New Deal is even a much more watered down version than the one that we actually need. And even that one, the Democrats are like, oh God, that's scary. I can't possibly.
So they also had to, in order to eke out this win, they also had to make Trump out to be Hitler. And I have called him awful things. I have called him a neo-fascist as well.
Well, and Hitler was an OG fascist.
Right. But Glenn Greenwald made some interesting points. And Greenwald, as you know, most of you know, recently quit his job. He's co-founder of The Intercept. He quit because he was censored there. So he has a new Substack where he's writing. And this article was about how basically Trump is no worse, and in fact is not as bad as the Bush administration. Mm-hmm. So the Democrats had to pretend that this is a unique threat, that Trump is a unique new level of awful that we've never seen before. And so to quote Glenn Greenwald, he says, none of Trump's actions and policies are in some new universe of savagery, lawlessness, or radicalism when compared to those who preceded him in power.
Amen.
The Democrats' own actions proved that they never believed their own melodramatic and self-glorifying rhetoric, self-glorifying #resistance, about Trump as the new Hitler, from their leaders joining with the GOP to increase the fascist dictator's domestic spying policies or powers. Which, quick aside, they also gave him most of these powers to begin with. Most of these were either created or increased under Obama.
You put it really well. You called it the dictator's toolkit, right?
Yeah, so they created a dictator's toolkit that they then handed off to Trump. But, okay, so to continue quoting Glenn Greenwald, they voted to increase the fascist dictator's domestic spying powers and military spending to their correct belief that the way to oust the neo-Nazi, quote-unquote, tyrant was through a peaceful and lawfully conducted democratic election in which vote totals and, if necessary, duly constituted courts would determine the next president. His point is, if they believed their own shit about him being Hitler, him being fascist and stuff, then they wouldn't say, so let's wait 4 years and then we'll vote on it.
Right, and they wouldn't increase the military budget. They wouldn't bow down to his Supreme Court picks. They wouldn't, whether that be Kavanaugh or Barrett. They wouldn't they wouldn't accept the shit that he and the shit that he's done these 4 years. The reason I'm laughing is because I'm remembering, I think it was a Reductress headline that said,
is that a page?
Yeah, a Reductress headline that said Pelosi vows to tweet something mean if Trump Trump decides to steal the election.
Dude, how true is
Which
that?
is like so perfect because it's like the Democrats, all they do is fucking talk. And I think this is what bothers me more. I think this is why the Democrats and these liberals bother me more in a lot of ways than, like a libertarian or even some Republican voters. Obviously not the fucking fascists, but because they have this arrogance about them, which suggests that they know everything, and then all they fucking do is talk. They're just like, oh well, and yes, we have to do something about the environment, and da-da-da-da. Well, here are all these options for doing something, but I mean, we really have to do something about the environment. If you could just sit down and shut up. But we have all these plans if you could just sit down and shut up, please.
Nancy Pelosi didn't just stop it; she mocked it.
She mocked it.
The Green Dream or whatever it's called.
Right, and. And both Kamala and Joe Biden have said in their speeches, just to be clear, we are sticking with fracking. I mean, I think it was Kamala who arbitrarily brought it up in the middle of it was people weren't even asking her about it. She was like, oh, and by the way, we are going to keep fracking. And we didn't even fucking ask you about that. But
what happened was Trump pressured during the first debate, I think. Trump pressured Biden to say whether he would ultimately one day end fracking.
I see.
And so Biden says, yeah, eventually we're moving away from fossil fuels, so eventually we end fracking. And then Trump jumped all over and said, you hear that, folks? You hear that? He's ending fracking. He's ending fracking. He's ending fracking. And so then the Biden campaign ran around with their heads cut off going, oh, we would never end fracking. We love fracking. Fracking is the best ever. Oh, my God. I frack in my living room just for fun, just on the off hours, just to see how it feels, just a tip, just for a second. And oh, that drill bit is so good when it goes in. It's just fucking insane. So that's why she crowbarred it in there she fucking fracked it straight in there. That's why she did that, was because they were on their apology tour for saying that one day in the future, 100 years from now, America might not kill ourselves with climate change.
Okay. Well, now that makes sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense. The stupidest shit I've ever heard, but
I mean, it does make sense. It's stupid shit, but
yeah. But it again, that's par for the course for the Democrats, right? It's let's talk about how we're different and how we're going to be different and how we care about you and we care about your children's ability to fucking breathe and drink clean water. But also, fracking is happening. Fucking deal with it. And if you dare stand up against it, we will bulldoze you. I mean, again, let's not forget, folks. Dakota Access, this whole fight at Standing Rock happened when Obama was president. Okay, I think
Black Lives Matter started under
exactly.
Obama.
The goldfish memories that people have is really it's really dangerous, because what it means. There was actually a quote from the philosopher Hegel that I posted the other day that said, "We learn from history that we don't learn from history," and it's so true, because it's Y'all, this shit happened under Obama. Like, people were brutalized by police and by, like, armed military forces for saying we would like clean water, okay? Like, this shit happened under the Democrats. So, I don't know what kind of fantasy fairy tale bullshit is spinning in people's minds about Biden and Harris being this you know, like, saviors coming to rescue us all from the evil machinations of Trump and friends, but it's bullshit, okay? And the longer we hold on to these absolutely horrific fairy tales, the longer we slowly die, and at this point we only have ourselves to blame.
Right, and you know, in case that's too dark for people,
I'm sorry, I'm not the comedian.
I do want to make a point that there's been a lot of positive change in this country, and it's coming outside of this stupid presidential election that they act like is everything, and every moment and every thought must be this presidential election. It's like it's coming on ballot initiatives, it's coming in lower, you know, state level stuff, and I mean the fact that we could go, and I said the same thing about gay marriage when it happened, the fact that we could go from, you know, people acting like you know, smoking a joint turned you into a werewolf that caused you to fuck raccoons at midnight into like legalized marijuana is on a wave across the country over, I mean, that happened over 20 years or less, 15 or something. And it's just like, if you look at each of these policy issues, Americans fucking agree on so many things, but they've rotted everyone's brain. They filled it with a fucking brain parasite that goes by the name of party identification. And you have to say, is it Republican or is it Democrat? And this is, I hate the others. And you guys, I like this is my team and that's your team. All right?
Right.
You listen up, motherfucker. And so, like, if you ask people on a ballot initiative whether they want to legalize marijuana, they go, oh, yeah, 70%, 80%, something like that. But if you ask people, if you say, well, that Democrat wants to legalize marijuana, they go, oh, my dear God, what a fucking horror show. Like, so it's all, if it's a party, then people get upset. If you take it outside of the party and you ask them about the issue, Americans are agreeing a lot of these things. One more, and we can make this one of the last points on the election. But I'd like to talk about it for a few minutes. So Caitlin Johnstone also had a good article titled "The U.S. Murder Machine Now Under Competent Management." Because
I mean, and even that, it's like, well, what do we call Biden competent?
Well, no, she means that the ruling elite view it as competent. She's not saying it is competent. A murder machine in general is not competent, I guess. But the ruling elite view it as, you know, things have stabilized for us to continue our kind of extraction of the Earth's resources, whether that be money, materials, minerals, or lives. And Donald Trump made that a very rocky boat, and now we can go about it on a placid lake. Is the hope. But within that, she mentioned something that, you know, a few people are talking about, but it's mostly getting overlooked. That not only did they obviously spend 40 years on this neo-McCarthyist Russiagate witch hunt, but they also acted like it was happening again this time around. The Democrats did, and the liberal media. They started saying, you know, oh, we have signs Russia's looking to, you know, infiltrate our elections, and the Kremlin this.
Oh, yeah, they were
and
prepped.
The GRU that, and something's going down, but we don't quite know what. And really, they were setting the groundwork for if the Democrats lose, if Biden loses again, they can continue with their Russia did it storyline. Their little fantasy land. It's QAnon for liberals. Their little fantasy land that just makes shit up, and they can just believe it, and they can, you know, cast aside anyone who's left of center because you're a Russian bot. And now, apparently, because Biden won, Russia disappeared, vanished. There's no mention of it.
You know what? Maybe they were tired. Maybe their alarm didn't go off.
I mean, they're on a different time.
They are
time zone.
You know what?
So.
Oh, and there was like that time change that happened pretty soon. Before
Maybe they were an hour late.
Right? Yeah.
Could be.
Early bird gets the election.
So, but here's what I'm trying to figure out. If I assume Kremlin agents. For the past 4 years, I assumed Kremlin agents were under each of our beds. Are they still there, just waiting, or do they leave? Where do they go?
I mean, I looked and I found a hammer and a sickle, but
I think
that's it.
That was the cats.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's communist.
Which, here's another point, which is kind of why I said
please let it be about kitty communism.
No. Although there was a story about how the U.S. Department of Defense was convinced that Cuba was training communist dolphins to like attack the U.S. or something. I'm not kidding. It's true. Anyway.
Would they be any dumber than U.S. soldiers?
Well, no, but here's the thing. The interesting thing is that, you know, the ideals of communism, you know, this like collaborative idea.
Dolphins work together.
So really, they just came communist anyway. Like they showed up at the party communist, and then you're like trying to repurpose them. I don't know. Anyway.
Repurpose them?
Oh, God.
Oh! Sorry. You swam straight into that one. Yes, you did.
I'm turning off your mic. For the sake of us all, I'm turning off your mic.
What would be the purpose of that?
Okay. I think you've gone on. I think that's gone on too long.
See, the nice thing is when you nail someone with a pun fart, it really kind of fries their brain.
It stinks up the entire room, and now I'm choking on the gases.
It really kind of fries their brain, so
really
it stops all further thought.
It does. I don't even remember what the fuck I was talking
about.
No,
go ahead, though.
I don't remember. You've short-circuited me with your shitty pun. Nope, now you have to fill time.
It's my job.
It's on you.
It's my job.
It's on you.
Were you gonna say something about how this grand Russian conspiracy has disappeared now that Biden won?
That's the other thing that I think is really funny is people keep talking about communism, and I'm like, were you? I guess this might be another goldfish issue, but you know that Russia is not communist anymore, right?
Right.
And actually, technically, they never fucking were. That the idea was to eventually get to communism, but that didn't work out, did it? Because what you had was Stalinism, which is not at all communist, but this is a different fucking ideological conversation.
And now when people use the word communism, they simply just mean Stalinism.
So, which is not the same thing. Right. But it's so funny when people talk about like evil communist Russia, and I'm like, dude, you're like 30 years too late to this conversation. Like, I don't know what the fuck to tell you, but you're late, man.
Or they literally will just casually say like the Soviet Union has been trying to like, right. And you're like, the Soviet Union has been around for like 30 years.
We're done with that.
30.
I know.
But anyway, the point of this is, the overarching point of this is that there never was any Russian plot to rig our shitty elections.
We do it ourselves.
We do it ourselves. There wasn't last time around. There isn't this time around. The every indictment that Mueller had was either against some Trump fucking moron who lied to investigators, but not anything substantive, like not about Russia. They just lied about other shit because they're all con artists. And so they lied about other stuff. So that's what they were indicted for. None of them were found to be, in some sort of deep collusion with Russia. And then the other people he indicted from the Russian clickbait farm, they dropped all those indictments quietly a month ago, or 2 months. I think it was 2 months ago. Furthermore, we actually haven't talked about this on the podcast. Days before the election, I think it was the Friday before the election, or I think so. But on a Friday. So this is if you're trying to get people not to notice something, that is the best day in
it's like
5-year span or something. 4-year span is Friday before the election. The Mueller report, responding to a FOIA request, revealed
the Mueller report.
The Mueller report
revealed.
I
think the Mother report.
I don't know what's on your mind, but the Mueller report revealed some redacted parts that had, because of a FOIA request, they had to respond to, and in those it said Julian Assange had no collusion with Russia, didn't work with Russia to reveal the DNC emails, which were all proven true, by the way. Right. Not a DNC email was lied about or faked. And And so I think they still try to claim, well, it was still Russia, but Russia sent it to some other hacker who gave it to WikiLeaks, and that's probably what happened. So I think they're still trying to claim that. But the truth is, these unredacted lines now from the report now show that they know Julian Assange never had any coordination with Russia.
Yeah,
And people still love to pull that up when you're like, defending Assange or talking about Assange. They'll say, well, I liked him till he worked with Russia to bring down Hillary. And they talk
exactly
like that's how they sound because the brain is not working at top speed.
Well, and here's the thing, so obviously that's totally fucking untrue. Assange had nothing to do with that. But hypothetically, in this weird parallel universe where the Soviet Union still exists and there are Russians under everyone's beds, and in this parallel universe where Assange somehow did this, it doesn't fucking matter. You don't torture someone for almost a decade because they leaked some shit about the party that you like, about your blue MAGA hat. You don't fucking do that. That's not, no. So I don't give a shit, even if for some reason you can't wrap your fucking head around the fact that Assange had nothing to do with this. Even still, not okay. Not okay to torture Assange the way that he's being tortured right now at the behest of not just the United States, but our allies in colonialism, the UK, and unfortunately much of Europe. So yeah, no, that's side note, but important to bring up.
Yeah, and by the way, I did a poll today on my Twitter. For those of you who'd like to either vote in it or follow it, that's at Lee Camp on Twitter.
I'm not peeing. I'm pouring wine.
I'm glad you're not peeing during the podcast.
I wanted to let everyone know in case they heard that. Like, what the fuck is going on? I mean, they could just stop recording and take a piss break.
Let's be clear. Not that you haven't pissed during one of our podcasts. At the moment, this was not piss.
At the moment. Usually I have one of those like female funnel things, that, by the way, those don't work. I've tried them before while camping. It doesn't work. I still pissed all over myself.
But
That's my user review.
User review. I had the funnel strapped to my head as I pissed, and it went all down my leg.
I actually had it on my boob, kind of like the Madonna.
I had one on each boob, and it did not help at all. So the poll is, should Donald Trump drive the rest of the ruling elite crazy by pardoning Julian Assange?
Woo!
And out of 3,479 votes, and by the way, we have 19 hours left in this poll. It's just getting started. Out of 3,000, Jesus.
474 too.
My mind is going. It sounds like we've had a lot more wine than we have. Out of 3,479 votes, 97% say yes.
You hear that, Donnie?
Let's
get to work on that shit.
Dude, honestly, Donald Trump, if you just want to drive them nuts.
I know.
That would be the thing to do.
Can we all tweet at Donald Trump like, hey, I think we should start a Twitter storm, all tweeting at Trump, hey, here's how to piss off the neolibs.
Yep, and I did one more of those. I said, and this poll is finished, so you can't vote in it, but you can go see it at Lee Camp on Twitter. Who thinks Donald Trump, since he has nothing left to lose, should piss off both neoliberals and neocons by releasing everything the government has on the JFK and MLK assassinations? And with 3,858 votes, did I say it right this time? 98.8% say release the documents.
Yep. Well, there you go, folks. Who wants to set up a Twitter storm to tweet at Donald Trump about these issues?
Oh, my God. I would have, if he were to pardon Julian Assange, I would have such a different view of him, sadly.
I wouldn't have a different view of him. I would just, because again, like we've talked about this before, that Trump's decisions are not based on any sort of moral compass.
No.
They're based on the people around him being like, we'd love it if you did this.
Oh yeah, his own ego.
Right.
Yeah.
So if that's what I'm saying, like a Twitter storm, like if enough people said, oh my God, Trump, we'd fucking love you if you pardoned Assange, there's a chance that he'd do it because he doesn't actually give a flying fuck. He just wants people to like him.
Right. Okay, some quick things before we get to our final story after this.
Well, I think we're going to wrap it up here.
No,
No?
not quite yet. I don't think we'll just squeeze it in real quick.
Okay.
No? Okay, we can wrap it up. I don't know. I haven't been paying attention to time, and I'm not good with the maths either.
I'm watching the clock here.
Okay. Well, some quick notes either way. We have a live stream, 8 p.m. this Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern. So please join us for that. For those of you who haven't joined in, it is a good time. We answer your questions. We talk about your topics. We raise money for a cause, but it is free to attend. And that is live stream at youtube.com/moment of clarity, 8 p.m. Eastern Sunday. Also, we'd love for you to join us on our Patreon and become a member over there. We have lost, I know these are tough times, we've lost about a fourth of our Patreon donors since the pandemic started, and I understand why. People are hitting on hard times, and we don't want you to stop listening if if your money's tight. But it'd be awesome if, for those of you who are not worried about paying the bills, to throw $1 over at patreon.com/commoncensored. You'll notice we have no ads for anything else. You guys fund all of this. So thank you so much for being a member over there. And Eleanor's movie is at hardroadofhope.com. It's won all kinds of awards. We should say she's just won an award for Women of Media.
Women and Media.
Damn it, I knew it wasn't in, because I knew it was weird.
Yeah, I know.
So I knew it was an award.
It is odd. It's kind of like I won an award for being a woman and also a media. But I mean, one of those is true. But yeah, no, it's a great honor. It was put forward by the Women's Institute for Freedom of the Press, and I, along with 5 fellow badass women journos and media creators, won the 2020 award. So that's super awesome, and I'm very honored.
So yes, you should definitely check out that movie, hardroadofhope.com. My book is now 20% off, leecampbook.com. In order to get 20% off, just type in the coupon code BPAPL. That's the initials of the title. So just go there, type in the coupon code, 20% off, leecampbook.com. All of Eleanor's work is at artkillingapathy.com, and we take your ideas, topics, and thoughts at commoncensored at protonmail.com. You can also leave a comment on the comment board at leecamp.com. Did I get everything?
I think so.
All right.
Just so folks know, I've just posted a new piece on my site, artkillingapathy.com. It's called An Illusions Requiem Mass. It's a 2-part kind of poem based on my feelings post-election. Some folks have been asking me how I feel, and since I'm a wordsmith and word nerd, the best way that I process the shittiness that I was feeling is through words. So if you're interested, if you also want like a good catharsis and want to check that out, head over to Art Killing Apathy, check out the blog there, and if you feel moved, please do share it.
Check it out. All right, we're going to head over to patreon.com/commoncensored to do a little extra content. Until next week, keep fighting.
Act out.